Hi. Welcome to Horror Movie Recap. A little summary of today's movie: a young couple trying for a baby move into an aging, ornate apartment building on Central Park West, but find themselves surrounded by peculiar neighbors. This is from the 1968 movie Rosemary's Baby. This movie's genre is drama and horror. Warning: spoilers and creepy content ahead. New York City, fall of 1965. Rosemary and Guy Woodhouse are a young married couple who rent an apartment in the Gothic and splendorous Branford building in Manhattan. At first, their friend and current landlord Edward Hutchins tries to dissuade them from doing so. The building has a rather unsavory past. It has been occupied by cannibal killers, Satanists and witches, such as the Trench Sisters, Keith Kennedy, Pearl Ames and the sinister Adrian Marcato, who created a scandal in the late 1890s by claiming to have conjured the living devil. Rosemary and Guy decide to move in anyway. Guy is an actor with a fledgling career. He's done plenty of TV plays and commercials, which have made him good money, but he wants great parts. Rosemary is a gentle soul, originally from Omaha, Nebraska, where she had been raised in a Catholic home and had attended convent school. As it is, Rosemary is estranged from her family, since they don't accept her marriage to Guy, who is not only an actor, but is also of mixed Jewish/Protestant upbringing. So her life in New York is all she has. She is a young housewife dedicated entirely to making a good home for her husband, whom she adores. One day in the laundry room, Rosemary makes the acquaintance of Terry Ginofrio, a young former drug addict who was rescued from the gutter by an elderly, eccentric couple, Roman and Minnie Castevet. The Castevets' apartment had formerly been the front part of theirs, but is now separated by a partition. Her friendship with Terry is short-lived. A few days after Rosemary meets her, Terry plunges to her death from the bay window. She and Guy are walking home when they see the police surrounding Terry's corpse. The Castevets happen to be walking home. Presumably distraught, they strike up an acquaintance with the Woodhouses and later invite them to dinner. Rosemary becomes suspicious about their new elderly friends, particularly the way that Roman insists on speaking with Guy in private. Other things trouble her, too, such as when Guy's career gets a jump start when his main rival, Donald Baumgart, suddenly goes blind. Now all he cares about is his new play. But then suddenly, he decides he wants to become a father. Rosemary is thrilled. Evidently having studied her ovulation cycle himself, he announces the ideal baby night. That evening, Minnie drops by to give them some chocolate mousse, or mouse as she calls it. Rosemary complains of a chalky undertaste, but Guy gets angry over her ingratitude. She eats part of it, and then furtively hides the rest in her napkin. Suddenly feeling disoriented after dinner, she passes out and has a bizarre dream. Rosemary is floating on a mattress in the sea, visits a cruise ship with the Kennedys, has her wedding band removed, is carried through the Sistine Chapel, a brief shot of the linen closet with Guy saying "Easy, you got her too high." Then she's back on the cruise ship naked and told by the skipper go below the deck, and passes by a burning church and lays down on a mattress. The unsettling dream becomes a nightmare when she finds herself surrounded by naked elderly people, a statue figure of a bearded man staring down at her, and two men tie her to a bed. Then Jackie Kennedy soothes her for not feeling well. Guy approaches her bed, but then something that looks and feels inhuman brutally rapes her. This is no dream. She cries. This is really happening. Pope Paul VI, then visiting NYC and having mass at Yankee Stadium, comes to offer her absolution. When she wakes up, Rosemary is sore and scratched. Guy half-heartedly apologizes for having had her while she was out. Rosemary is angry, but baby night later proves successful. Dr. C.C. Hill, referred to her by her girlfriend Elise Dunstan, confirms it. Upon hearing the news, the Castevets persuade Rosemary to go to Dr. Abraham Saerstein, a prominent obstetrician who delivers all the babies of the upper class in the city. Rosemary entrusts herself to him, accepting his odd advice and his recommendation of Minnie's strange vitamin drinks, which include a rare herb, tennis root. She develops pain during her first trimester, which causes her to lose weight and look emaciated, alarming Hutch. As her pregnancy progresses, Rosemary feels a mounting sense of dread and angst, especially since no one close to her seems to want to acknowledge her pain. She decides to throw a party for her young friends, a qualification she insists upon. She also insists that they not invite the Castevets. Her girlfriends, including Elise, Joan Jellicoe and Tiger Honigsen, tell her she looks awful and that her pain is far from normal. She has to see a new doctor. Rosemary tells Guy, and they fight bitterly over it, but at the last minute she relents. The pain has suddenly stopped, and she can now feel the baby kicking. Rosemary's friend Hutch drops by for a visit. Roman and Minnie spot him, and suddenly Guy arrives home unexpectedly, as if they'd phoned him and urged him to rush back to the apartment. Hutch asks a lot of questions of Roman and Guy, and before he leaves the apartment, he realizes he's misplaced one of his gloves. Later, Hutch falls into a mysterious coma and dies. Rosemary receives a book from Hutch's companion, Grace Cardiff, which Hutch had intended to give to Rosemary personally. It's called All of Them Witches, a study on witchcraft through the ages, featuring a chapter on Adrian Marcato. His appearance is familiar from the dream, and his son, Stephen. The name is an anagram, is the final clue Hutch had left for her. Rosemary uses her Scrabble tiles to learn the horrible truth. Roman Castevet is an anagram for Stephen Marcato. Now she suspects Roman, Minnie and all their all-too-helpful friends are Satan worshippers. She visits Dr. Sarstein and tells him she'll have no more to do with them. It's just as well, Sarstein informs her, Roman is dying and would like to go away to Europe on a farewell tour. Rosie feels guilty about her suspicions, and when the time comes, bids them a fond farewell. But not all is what it seems. As her due date, June 28, 1966, nears, she learns one strange thing after the other. Could it be that Guy is involved with witches? Witches use babies for their rituals. Has he promised them the baby? She also learns that witches use the belongings of their intended victims to blind or kill them. On a hunch, she contacts Guy's former rival, Donald Baumgart, and gets him to reveal that Guy swapped neckties with him just before he went blind. Distraught, Rosemary packs a suitcase and goes to Dr. Sarstein to tell him what she's learned. But his secretary's offhand remark reveals something horrible. The good doctor sometimes smells like tannis root, which she has learned is more commonly called devil's pepper. Dr. Sarstein is a witch, too, and must be part of the plot against her. Rosemary calls Dr. Hill from a payphone on the street and persuades him to see her. When she reveals her suspicions to him, he seems to take her seriously, and he gives her a sedative to help her sleep, but she is horrified when she awakens and finds that Guy and Dr. Sarstein have arrived to take her back home, and Hill is unwilling to stop them, seemingly frightened of them. She manages to lock them out of the apartment, but before she can call for help, Guy and the others appear in the apartment, having entered by some other means. Rosemary tries to fight them off and she goes into labor. They have to force her down on her bed, while Sarstein injects her with a sedative. When she wakes, Guy tells her she has had a boy and that he's fine. Later, Sarstein tells her that the baby is dead. The coven members sit with Rosemary, collecting her breast milk, and she thinks she can hear a baby crying through the walls of the apartment. She knows they have taken the baby, and she thinks they are planning to sacrifice it for one of their rituals. After a few days, Rosemary arms herself with a sharp butcher knife and finds the partition between her apartment and the apartment of the Castevets. Removing the closet interior, she finds the hidden doorway to the other apartment and steals inside. She looks at an oil painting of a burning church, whispering, "You got her too high," apparently having a flashback of the dream. She discovers the entire coven sitting in the living room around a bassinet, including Minnie and Roman. A photo of Adrian Marcato is up above the mantel. There are other people there, too, that Rosemary does not recognize, people that seem to have come from as far away as Japan. She approaches the bassinet, which is adorned with an inverted cross, and sees the baby for the first time, not shown to the audience, horrified that the baby has strange eyes. He has his father's eyes, Roman tells her, and the coven tells her that Satan is the baby's father, not Guy. Guy finally tells her that he made an agreement with the coven to allow them to impregnate Rosemary with the spawn of the devil in exchange for a successful acting career. Rosemary spits in his face and sinks into a chair, defeated. Minnie brings her a cup of tea. Roman speaks more gently to her and encourages her to be the baby's mother and does not need to join their evil coven. Although Rosemary hesitates at first, her maternal instincts win and she approaches the bassinet, telling the witch rocking it that she's rocking the baby too fast. The witch protests at first until Roman orders her to leave the crib. Rosemary begins to rock the baby and sings to it. Thanks for watching Horror Movie Recap. Subscribe for more videos like this, give us a like to help out, and don't forget to turn on notifications.